Once Human just got a brand new developer talk. We'll go over all the details there that outline both the March 13th and the March 17th update. I was also part of an exclusive interview and focus group with the CMs, which that feedback will go directly to the developers. I'll cover everything that was talked about in that interview from all the creators' perspectives as well as the CMs, and even some additional developer insight. Last up, of course, we'll cover both the shop and community updates, as well as a whole bunch more. What's up, world? This is Utopia back in for another video. Today we're checking out all things Once Human. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. First off, we'll go over the dev chat and then my exclusive focus group interview. So jumping back to it, they do break down a bit of what the March 27th update is going to be. Originally, as they point out here, the controllers were probably going to be removed with the March 13th update. However, as they mentioned here, with the March 27th update breakdown, the controllers will be removed then. I've gone over a few of these topics in my last video, but essentially they were meant to prevent excessive dungeon farming and add a bit more grind by forcing players to farm out controllers. Their solution is that mods and stat-related systems are being reworked for better accessibility. You should be able to get mods much easier. And of course, they're going to do that compensation, a one-time gift, allow players to redeem mod crates and other in-game items to do either save or use your controllers. Now, not sure what I recommend there. Don't know how good these crates or compensation are going to be. I don't know how they'll compare to the either previous controller use. It's up to you what you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and save mine, especially because I'm only in a server that's on phase 2. Now, you will be able to exchange these controllers at trade camps, which you can do for mod crates, deviation, merging items, or mod parts. I did go over this before, but the rates are 1-to-1, 3-to-1, and 10-to-1 depending on the rarity. There will be 60 crates per rarity, with a weekly limit cap of 10 crates of each rarity per account. The significant one here is that there is a deviation merging item. Really haven't seen this mentioned too much aside from that deviation scenario. They also talked about a way to level deviations. I do believe essentially that's what that is going to be. And we're not for sure on that. This does come March 27th, so we don't really have a full breakdown of that, but you might be able to merge deviations. So keeping these controllers could be well worth it. We also did talk about this previously, but there is some cross-character sharing. They want to reduce the repetitive grind and give more freedom amongst characters. Star Crown blueprints will be shared across all characters, while blueprint conversions will be increased to 15 with 6 attempts per week. Players with 2+ characters at collection level 90 will get an extra in-game gift. Essentially, that is the max level. They also mentioned there's going to be no restrictions on cross-character sharing, since all novice servers are PvE, and wish machine changes will now sync across characters. Blueprints and blueprint fragments will also be shared between characters, and certain events-based prize pools will reset with the update. Blueprint shop will now be limited to 1 purchase per account. So if you want to get those out of the way, now you should do so. We also did go over several of these things already. The non-shutdown server, essentially there's going to be improvements with construction, farming rebalances, weapon rebalances, new cosmetics. They will also server merge non-shutdown servers in the future, essentially those permanent servers, and that overlapping territories would be recalled. There's a few new details with the PvE mode Endless Dream, and essentially that construction will be allowed anywhere in Dreamscapes, which are special areas affected by Nightmare. There'll be limits on structures to prevent land grabbing, and players can now dismantle structures to avoid issues. Pretty cool there that you might be able to dismantle other people's constructions, just in case those do get in the way. That should cover it for the dev notes and dev talk. Again, this was basically published over on the China website already, with a few added details in between. Moving on though, I did just have that focus group interview and exclusive interview with other content creators, as well as those with the CMs, as well as the community managers that do report directly to the developers. Now, sometimes we've had a developer or two be in these chats. This time around though, they are just bringing our feedback directly to them. This focus group was essentially around weapon balance, but it did mostly and pretty much all pertain to PvP side of things. So essentially what they had us creators do is go through and make a tier list of these weapons. Now we did this together and basically tried to agree on a few weapons. The hard point was around Bingo and Crit Pulse. Everyone essentially agreed that Critical Pulse was a little bit overpowered, while some people thought that Bingo was a little bit more overpowered, or they should have been S tier, but most of us all agreed that it should be at least an A tier. With Critical Pulse out of the way, we all agreed basically that the Bingo weapon would be an S tier weapon, and essentially because there is some animation canceling exploits right now, it basically is an S tier weapon. This thing is incredibly strong in Evolution's Call. I've been through multiple warbands now, and everybody has either essentially been a #1 player as a Bingo player, or they've complained about the weapon that's other than Critical Pulse. A lot of the content creators in this focus group were actually in Prison versus Class scenarios, and it wasn't as effective in those scenarios as it is in Wars and essentially in all of Evolution's Call. I completely get that, but it is still a very strong weapon. You can see here the full tier list of what we actually did pick out. These are actually in order of what those tier lists would be. So essentially anything you see in the first column of B is the strongest compared to the last column or the last line of B. And with the new meta changes, we basically talked about that Frost Vortex is non-existent or not used anymore. Fast Gunner essentially not used at all. There are some melee weapons that do have some utilization in some scenarios, in some instances, but for the most part you do see pistols and snipers taking the front end of the pack, with KVD Boom making it into B tier. Whether or not you agree with this tier list, we did have a lot of back and forth on that, and not everyone agreed on every single weapon, but this was what we did come up with together as a group. We also talked about, again, all LMGs were basically in a bad state aside from the KVD. And again, Frost Vortex was nerfed a little bit too hard. Hazardous Object had that exploit issue, but we thought maybe it could be a translation issue, where it's supposed to do damage to yourself, but currently it doesn't. One of the CMs mentioned that more than likely this is a translation issue, and the weapon is not supposed to do any damage to yourself. As of right now, it does 0% damage to self, where it says it does 40%. They mentioned that it is an intended mechanic currently. This weapon is really strong, and there is an exploit with it right now that makes it a little bit too overpowered, so we are hoping that that does get patched and nerfed. There is the Stun Baton. Melee weapons really don't have a place in the game as of right now, or melee builds don't really have a certain place yet, but apparently the Stun Baton is actually decent in Prism vs. Clash. The reason being is if you properly place a dummy target and you hit that dummy target, it actually does AoE, and you'll essentially do AoE damage through walls, which can help stop with raids. Though in the Prism scenario, this actually is pretty good. We all, except for a few, basically agreed that the Bingo meta was very boring though, and that essentially Bingo has been the meta for the entire game cycle. So everybody was hoping that that weapon does either get nerfed, or the animation cancel gets fixed, or there's a few other things that they could do there. Again, as you see, we put it in A tier. Realistically, it would be S tier if there wasn't for the Critical Pulse. Again, the devs did take notes on the animation canceling. They also mentioned that there might be a PvP patch sometime soon. We don't know if it's going to be at the end of April with March 27th or in the April month. More than likely, I do assume it's going to be within April time period, as we do have the mobile release and they do want the game fine-tuned for that release. So I do imagine that we're probably going to get the PvP patch before then. But again, I don't know for sure. They didn't know for sure, so take that with a grain of salt as we don't have any confirmed date. They did mention though that a lot of the feedback from this focus group and previous focus groups is used. In fact, the reason why we even have free skins in the events is due to focus groups. They originally told us that they wanted to focus on payers and people that pay for skins. But I and a few others did make a point that we really would like to see free skins in events, and that free cosmetics are what kind of strives us to play the game. And yeah, the reason why we just had a ton of events with a bunch of free skins, that was because of mine and others' feedback. That's quite huge there. I'm really glad and happy to see that. I did really think so, as they kind of changed their stance on free cosmetics. Now they made it so that you can earn those free ones and you don't have to just pay for anything. I love that new stance, so I'm really glad that they took that feedback there. Since they did take that feedback, as well as what happened with the Lightforged loot crates, essentially they did nerf the price on those. They were reaching quite high, with the car skin reaching like $600, I believe. Now, a lot of people wish they were a lot cheaper, but with our feedback, they did bring those down. If you guys want to let me know what you're experiencing, either on your PvE server, on your PvP servers, what type of feedback you want to gather, please do so either in the comment section below. You can also head to my Discord channel, put that in there. I will make sure that I grab and take notes from that and bring that up in the next focus group. We also did go over one more thing here, which is making a tier list for the keywords. So essentially the status and damage effects. As you see here, Power Surge does take out the S tier because of Critical Pulse, while Bullseye takes A, B tiers on Stable Bomber, C tier being Bounce and Burn, while everything else, Frost Vortex and Shrapnel, hit basically not used, as most of their weapons are not used in PvP currently. They were when the game first came out, but things have changed since then. That does cover for the dev and focus group side of things. We have a few last minute mentionables here. The first one is a shop update or a new Lightforged loot crate that's happening, which is the Youthful Glory. That's going to be dropping on March 14th. Although there has been some feedback around this cosmetic already. People really want militarized skins, as they said they would bring out. Or as this post points out, they want more armor-esque type of games, heavy armor. Which, yeah, I totally get that. Again, they said they would bring out more militarized stuff. I am hoping they do so in the future. We've also had this cool article that I figured I'd feature. This was done by Stardust X0050. And eventually shows up the weekly community roundup. They have photo op here, Once Human Specialist in the meme time. Some really cool stuff here. They feature other creators of the subreddit. I think just a super fun article overall, so I will link to it down below if you want to check that out. Overall, that's about cover for today's video. If you like, subscribe, and until the next one. Deuces!